Hello, hobbits, and welcome back to another episode of Lady of the Rings. I'm your host, Sophia, and today we're reading Chapter 4, A Shortcut to Mushrooms. Now, I always felt like this had a psychedelic reference. I don't know why. I don't know if that's even stands up or makes sense at all, but me being like who I am, I'm like, oh, magic mushrooms. In chapter 4, however, we've just left the hobbits after their night with the elves, and they have this relaxing kind of chill feast with the elves, but the elves are kind of like, you're on your own, good luck. I hear that there's black riders chasing you, but I don't care enough because I'm leaving the party. Anyway, sorry, just woke up, drinking my coffee. So good. In a shortcut to mushrooms, the hobbits essentially continue on their walking path. And in this chapter, we get to meet Farmer Maggot, an iconic character who is so brave, stands up to the Nazgul really without too much fear at all. I've seen a lot of really funny Farmer Maggot memes online that I should share on my TikTok about basically him just like not giving a shit about these Nazgul, these black riders. But again, throughout this chapter, the hobbits are they're still being pursued by the Nazgul, and there's still that sense of like, ooh, like somebody's watching me, they're being followed. It's a little creepy still. Yeah, they keep walking, they get to Farmer Maggot's house, and yeah, it's a pretty short chapter, so I don't know how long this episode's gonna be, but let's just get into it. The first sentence of the chapter: in the morning, Frodo woke refreshed. So I just wrote down that this speaks to the ability of the elves to always kind of rejuvenate the soul as well as the body and the mind. Like, despite this burden that Frodo's carrying, the elves and their company always seem to, we'll definitely see more of this later in the books, but they always seem to rejuvenate, to heal, to protect, and to give hope. They leave before the hobbits even wake up. And honestly, like I was saying before, I don't feel like they really give the hobbits much other than like a night of rejuvenation. Like, they don't really get too much advice about how they should move forward with these Nazgul other than just to like avoid them, but they're on their tail the whole time. So it's really, I don't know. Somebody had commented on one of my TikToks, like, about how funny it is that these elves just don't really give a crap. And I agree. I don't think they really care. They're leaving Middle-earth, though. So they're like, peace out. Like I said, leaving the party. They're done. We get so many funny, like, I just love the way Pippin is written in the books compared to the movies. I feel like the movies don't do his character justice, like how funny he is. Like, I know him and Merry are the comedic relief in the movies, but the way that Tolkien writes him, everything that comes out of Pippin's mouth is sarcastic, a jab at like Frodo. It's really funny to me. They wake up, they're eating breakfast. Frodo wakes up late. This is what I wrote down. Frodo wakes up late and Pippin's like, I didn't want to leave any bread for you, but Sam made me. Like, it's so funny. And Frodo sits down to eat, and Frodo's kind of grouchy. He's a little grumpy this morning. Even though he feels refreshed, I think he's like, it's like when you wake up and you're like, oh my god, I'm remembering all the things I have to do today. And Pippin's not helping because he's just like munching on his breakfast. And Pippin goes, do you think we shall see any of those riders? Asked Pippin cheerfully. Like, Pippin, hopefully not. Yes, probably, said Frodo, not liking the reminder. But I hope to get across the river without their seeing us. So yeah, Pippin's asking Frodo all these questions. Frodo's just like, leave me alone. Like the millennial, like, don't talk to me before I've had my coffee kind of thing. Like, that's Frodo this morning. And Frodo basically tells Pippin that he needs to think, like, after Pippin's been asking him all these questions. And Pippin says, good heavens, at breakfast? Pippin's like, why do you need to think? You're just eating breakfast. Mind you, Pippin, again, the only one who doesn't really know the true, like, severity of the mission and what's going on. I also think that this first page, again, in a lot of what we're seeing beginning of the book, it's a lot of innocence and themes of the innocence of the hobbits, like, contrasted with this looming darkness. And at this point in the book, the darkness is more of a background character and more of a sense of just like, it's a little unnerving because they're being followed, but they're still these fun, cheerful hobbits. I haven't really experienced that much horror and violence and horrible things that they're going to see later in these books. And there is a lot of innocence that's pervading kind of the first few chapters that, like I said, contrast that darkness that's going on in the background. So Frodo is thinking, he's a little agitated. He sees Merry kind of running through the turf, the grass, and Sam's eating his breakfast. And Frodo thinks to himself, how could I possibly include my friends in this horrible journey that I've been put on, and this horrible burden that's been placed on me? How could I possibly include them in that? And I think that is, again, speaks so much to Frodo just being such a caring person, such a caring friend. First and foremost, he makes sure that the well-being of his friends are the most important thing to him, and he's reluctant to share that burden that's been placed on him because of how much he cares about his friends. I think that speaks to people when you're dealing with a lot and you just don't want to unload on people. And like, for me personally, it can be really hard to share and talk about my own emotions with my close friends because I don't want to burden them with some of the dark things that I might be going through. And I think that is, again, what makes Frodo such a reliable character, that he cares so much for people, and he is just inherently good, and he's strong, but he's flawed. Like, he's really strong, but he shows by showing his weaknesses, and by being, like, indecisive and worrisome and concerned, but pushing forward anyway. And I think that's what makes him so awesome, is like, despite all of these things going through his head, and despite the Nazgul that are after him, like, he's not just curling up in a ball, giving up and waiting for Gandalf, but he pushes forward. He pushes forward no matter what. He's going to take another step, even though it feels impossible to him to eventually complete this mission. So Frodo is kind of talking to himself. And at this point he's considering, I think, also including Pippin on the journey and telling him, and he's kind of stopping himself, and he's like, no, I can't do that. Like, it's bad enough that I've already included Sam, who I don't even know, now that I'm seeing, like, how scary some of these things really are, I don't even know if I can, like, take him. And he looks over at Sam, and Sam's already looking at him. Like, because Sam, the forever loyal person that he is eyes on Frodo all the time, making sure he's okay, making sure that he is bearing this burden and taking care of himself at the same time. So, yeah, it's just really sweet how much it's important to Sam to stay with Frodo, and he's unwavering in that. Never once, I don't think we will see throughout the series, Sam getting to a point where he doesn't want to be there for Frodo. He knows how important it is. Like, I think that it goes beyond just Sam's loyalty to Frodo. Like, there's a tendency to think about Sam just so in love with or obsessed with Frodo that he, can't abandon him on his mission. But I don't think we give Sam enough credit for, from the beginning, understanding the severity of the mission, understanding the impact that it's going to have on Middle-earth if they fail. He is in the same boat as Frodo in the sense that he understands these things, and I think we need to give him more credit for basically doing it not just for Frodo, but he doing it for his own love of Middle-earth and his own love of the Shire and his own inherent need to protect his home. Sam loving the elves so much and being so obsessed with kind of their reverence and like otherworldliness, but the elves are like protectors of Middle-earth. And the reason I think why that's such an important and interesting character trait for Sam, his love for the elves, is because it shows his ability to see beyond the Shire, and that he is not just a regular hobbit who's kind of closed-minded in the confines of Hobbiton, of the Shire. I think the conversation that we hear earlier in the book between Sandyman and Sam is very indicative of that. And Sam as a character alone, in and of himself, is brave in going on this quest, not just because he's a loyal friend to Frodo, but like I said, because he also cares so much about Middle-earth. He knows what's at stake. It's not just to stay by his side, it's also to complete this mission and save the world, essentially, right? Frodo asks Sam if he's sure he still wants to come. Basically, like, you've seen the Nazgul, you've seen what's at stake here, the reality of, like, us and the danger that we're putting ourselves in. Are you sure? And Sam is unwavering in his response. He does not even have a hint of wanting to turn back and go back to the Shire. And again, this speaks so much to Sam's... Like, Sam, I love Frodo, and I don't agree with the Frodo hate sometimes that I see, like, Sam's the main character or whatever. But Sam really is, like, at the end of the day, I don't want to say more brave than Frodo, but he has more of a sense of purpose, I feel like, as he's continuing this mission. And he's more steadfast in his ability to focus on what's really at stake and focus on what they need to do. And that's not to say that he's necessarily stronger or even braver than Frodo. I just think Frodo doubts his own abilities. He doubts the possibility that this mission will even be successful. Not to say that Sam doesn't maybe have those same doubts, but Sam knows how important it is to be steadfast for Frodo in his belief that they are able to complete this mission, which we'll see much more of later in the books when it's just the two of them. But I just think it's super interesting. I think their dynamic is super interesting. I think, like I said, Sam is more than just a loyal friend. Like, no. They need each other, and they need to both be on this mission for it to work and for them to get to a place where it's even remotely possible that this is going to be a success. So I'm going down the Sam rabbit hole, but I just need to, these thoughts that I have about his character. Like, I love all of the characters so much. Like, that's the magical nature of Tolkien, is that you just fall in love with these characters so easily because they're just so lovable. So one of the other things that Frodo's not worried about, but I don't know if he gives Sam enough credit. Like, he is like, Sam, well, you've already seen the elves. Are you sure you want to come? Are you sure? And Sam's like, yes, duh. I knew this wasn't just to go see elves. Like, I'm not dull. But I think Frodo just cares so much about Sam, and that's why he's like kind of checking in on him here. And Frodo's basically like, you still mean to come with me? And Frodo says, it's going to be very dangerous, Sam. It already is dangerous. Most likely neither of us will come back. Basically saying we're both probably going to die, Sam. So are you sure you want to come? Totally fair question to ask somebody joining you on a quest where you probably won't return. And Sam, and I think this shows Sam's optimism here too, where Frodo's basically like, we're probably, and not that Frodo's being negative. He's being realistic here, right? Neither of us are likely to come back. And in response to that, Sam says, if you don't come back, sir, then I shan't. That's certain. So Sam is saying, no, if you don't come back. It's not, we won't come back if you don't come back. So he still has that hope in his mind that he holds on to that, steadfast, like I said before. And then he goes on to say, like, I can't leave you. Don't you leave him, they said to me. Leave him, I said. I never mean to. I'm going with him if he climbs to the moon, and if any of those Black Riders try to stop him, they'll have Sam Gamgee to reckon with, I said. They laughed. Who are they, and what are you talking about? The elves, sir. We had some talk last night. They seemed to know you were going away. So Frodo asks him if he still is so infatuated with the elves now that he's actually met them, which I thought interesting, and it shows their friendship. Like, Frodo wants to know, Sam, you've always wanted to see elves. You've seen them. What do you think now? And Sam responds, they seem a bit above my likes and dislikes, so to speak. It doesn't seem to matter what I think about them. They are quite different from what I expected, so old and young and so gay and sad, as it were. And then Frodo's kind of startled by Sam's response. It says, Frodo looked at Sam rather startled, half expecting to see some outward sign of an odd change. But it looked like the old Sam Gamgee sitting there, except his face was unusually thoughtful. So they have an impact on Sam, the elves, I think. I think finally seeing them has an impact on him, but his read on the situation, or like his perception of what these elves are and how they influenced him, it's just so deep. There's so much depth to his understanding of elves, and he doesn't take them kind of at surface level, but rather the way he describes them is almost just on another level, I think. He perceives the duality of elves, something I wrote down. Basically, when he says, it doesn't seem to matter what I think about them. They're so old and young, and they're also gay and sad. And that's just such an astute observation for Sam to look at these immortal beings and see, like I said, the duality of the elves. Through this conversation that they're having, Sam can see a way forward where Frodo cannot, and that is where his strength as a partner on this quest, on this mission, lies, I think. Not necessarily just in his loyalty or his love for Frodo, whatever you want to call it. Frodo asks Sam if he cares about leaving now that he's already seen the elves. And Sam says, I don't know how to say it, but after last night I feel different. I seem to see ahead in a kind of way. I know we are going to take a very long road into darkness, but I know I can't turn back. It isn't to see elves now, nor dragons, nor mountains that I want. I don't rightly know what I want, but I have something to do before the end, and it lies ahead, not in the Shire. I must see it through, sir, if you understand me. Frodo says, I don't altogether. So, like I said, Sam's seeing a way forward. He's seeing a path forward. Now that he's kind of seen the elves, he's realizing that this journey for him is not just to go see amazing things, but it's to complete this mission. And again, a very astute observation for Sam, who's just been a gardener in the Shire his whole life and he doesn't have any reason to be so, he's really smart. He's really has a deep brain, like the way that he thinks about things. It's on a very deep level, and I think that's why he has this reverence for the elves too. It's just all very interesting to me. So the hobbits prepare to depart from where they're eating breakfast, and they discuss what route they should take. Pippin wants to stay on the road, and Frodo prefers to take what he calls a shortcut through the woods and across the countryside to get to Buckleberry Ferry. One thing that Pippin says is, shortcuts make long delays, argued Pippin. Love that little hobbitism. I think makes sense sometimes. But they end up kind of taking the shortcut because Pippin reveals that he had counted on passing a tavern for them to stop at for a little brew and a little bite. I had counted on passing the Golden Birch at stock before sundown, the best beer in East Farthing, or used to be. It's a long time since I tasted it. And Frodo says, shortcuts make long delays, but inns make longer ones. At all costs, we must keep you away from the Golden Perch. We want to get to Buckleberry before dark. What do you say, Sam? And Sam says, I will go along with you, but it's kind of reluctantly, because in parentheses it says, in spite of private misgiving and a deep regret for the best beer in East Farthing. So the hobbits are still being hobbits. They're still just looking to get a nice pint of beer. Actually, they don't get it in pints, I don't think, because they're so small. But they decide to take the shortcut, and they start on the road. It's not easy. They have to kind of wade their way slowly through the brush. Sam and Frodo and Pippin begin walking, and like I said, it's difficult. They have 18 more miles to go to the ferry, so it's not a short distance that they're traveling over just by foot, especially if you're thinking about going through untamed wilderness. I think that's pretty difficult. Sam is the first to notice, of course, but he hears something, so we know from previous chapters that Sam has quite incredible hearing. He is always the first person to hear a Black Rider approaching. Don't know why. Would love to hear your thoughts on why that may be. But they are kind of traveling down this like steep bank, and they are in this like tangled thicket. They struggle down to the bottom, halted, wondering what to do, and Pippin's kind of smiling like, we should have taken the road. Then all of a sudden, Sam, of course the first one to notice, turns back, looks, and they all looked, and on the edge high above them they saw against the sky a horse standing beside it, stooped a black figure. So simple. It's 2 sentences. They all looked, and on the high edge above them, they saw against the sky a horse standing, period. Beside it, stooped a black figure. Like, cutting. I just love the way Tolkien writes in these little moments when we see the Black Riders, because it's like short, simple. It's really not very descriptive. It's just like, it's there. It's watching. It's following them still. When you're reading it, you're like, oh my God. It's a little scary. I think he's really great at writing these scary parts. It's suspenseful, in my opinion, especially after paragraphs about them struggling down this bank and kind of going on there, just them like walking. Like, that's all we're talking about. And then they look behind them, and there's there's the Black Rider. So scary. It says they at once gave up any idea of going back. Frodo led the way, plunged quickly into the thick bushes beside the stream. And he says to Pippin, we are both right. The shortcut has gone crooked already, but we got under cover just in time. You got sharp ears, Sam. Can you hear anything coming? They stood still, don't hear anything coming, and then they continue walking. Again, quick little blip, but they continue on their walk. Pippin kind of recognizes some of this area and says we're a little off course. We need to veer the other way. They hurry over kind of a treeless space, a little nervous when they're not in cover because they can't hide quickly. The wind died away. They didn't talk for about an hour, it says, but they keep kind of glancing over their shoulder. But the hobbits have this remarkable ability where even after they're facing, horrible circumstances, they kind of naturally always cheer themselves up. And at every point that they've been like terrified or faced with something scary, they're cautious for a little bit, but within, some time, they begin kind of singing, laughing together, talking. They go on for another couple miles. The sun it's kind of raining, and then the sun's coming out. We're hearing about the leaves turning yellow because it's autumn. They find that the elves had left them this pale drink that helps them feel great. And after drinking it, they are refreshed, they're laughing. Like I said, they get kind of lighthearted, and they sing to themselves. So they sing their song, they singing it again over, it's like they, loops. And then all of a sudden, again, like it just cuts in. You just get a sentence. Tolkien writes, "They stopped short suddenly. Frodo sprang to his feet. A long-drawn wail came to the wind, like the cry of some evil and lonely creature. It rose and fell and ended on a high, piercing note. Even as they sat and stood, as if suddenly frozen, it was answered by another cry, fainter and further off, but no less chilling to the blood. Then there was a silence, broken only by the sound of the wind on the leaves." So that's scary, right? As soon as they kind of relax a little bit, they're singing their song, they hear this horrifying wail. The way it's described is terrifying. They talk about what it could be, which I think was a little silly. I'm like, you know that was nothing good. And they can't even talk about it. And, to be fair, I think they're just terrified. They literally can't even talk about it. So they go on again and start walking. They come to kind of a sudden end. They're away from the shelter of the wood. So after they leave the woods, continue walking. At first they're nervous, get more lighthearted. I think being in the Shire makes them more comfortable. They think that they are safe, more safe. They realize, or Pippin realizes, that they're on Farmer Maggot's land. And Frodo's immediately terrified. And Pippin doesn't understand why. So Frodo tells him that when he was young, he got caught trespassing on Farmer Maggot's land for taking his mushrooms, and this was before Bilbo adopted him when he lived with his original family. And it says that he was beat as a child by Farmer Maggot for taking his mushrooms. So Frodo is in that situation of immediately remembering what it's like to be a scared little kid getting beat for taking this guy's mushrooms. Farmer Maggot also has these big scary dogs, and he's just known to chase people off of his property. Like, he doesn't want people on his property, doesn't put up with it. Frodo is scared. He literally compares the trouble of being on Farmer Maggot's land to being pursued by the Black Riders, in the sense that after Pippin says that they're on Farmer Maggot's land, Frodo says one trouble after another, like compared to the other trouble that they're dealing with. I don't think it's that big of a deal, Frodo. "One trouble after another," said Frodo, looking nearly as much alarmed as if Pippin declared the lane was the slot leading to a dragon's den. The others looked at him in surprise. So yeah, Frodo tells them the story of when he was a youngster and this happened, and I just think it's funny. Pippin laughs at him. He's like, okay, come on. It's time you made up, especially if you're coming back to live here in Buckland. Old Maggot is really a stout fellow. If you leave his mushrooms alone, let's get into the lane, and then we shan't be trespassing. If we meet him, I'll do the talking. So as they're approaching Farmer Maggot's house, we learn that these types of hobbits are house dwellers. They don't live in holes in the ground. They actually have their own houses, which I just thought that was interesting. The farmer is immediately cautious of the strangers because it is more dangerous for them there on the border of the Shire. They have more people passing through. So they are walking up to the house. They meet Farmer Maggot, and he reveals to them that earlier in the day, a stranger had stopped by earlier that day and immediately invites them inside his house for a drop of good ale on tap, which probably sounds great after a long walk being pursued by Nazgul. So Pippin introduces Frodo after Farmer Maggot shares this with him, and the farmer looks immediately like so concerned. And Frodo thinks this is because of him stealing the mushrooms when he was a child. He's like terrified. We learn later on that that's not why the farmer looks concerned. He's concerned because the stranger that stopped by was asking for Frodo, and that's why he's concerned, and that's why he wants them to come inside and have a drink with him, etc. So they go into the farmer's house. It sounds absolutely lovely. They're sitting by a hearth. They're getting beer. Mrs. Maggot is bringing them food. He has all these kids kind of like around, like feasting with him. It says that Pippin found himself more than compensated for missing the golden perch. Sam sipped his beer suspiciously. He had a natural mistrust of the inhabitants of other parts of the Shire, and also was not disposed to be quick friends with anyone who had beaten his master however long ago. So he's not super keen on this Farmer Maggot because of what he did to Frodo when he was a kid. So they talk about things like agricultural prospects, the weather. The farmer also reveals that he does recognize Frodo for stealing his mushrooms, and I think it's kind of a sweet moment. He says, "And you, Mr. Baggins, though I dare say you still like mushrooms. Ah, yes, I recognize the name. I recollect the time when young Frodo Baggins was one of the worst young rascals of Buckland. But it wasn't mushrooms I was thinking of." So at this point you're like, then why, what did you recognize, right? But it wasn't mushrooms I was thinking of. I just heard the name Baggins before you turned up. What do you think that funny customer asked me? So they're all kind of waiting anxiously for him to go on. And he is loving the drama. Farmer Maggot is sitting there dragging out the story, made them come inside for food and drink, talked about like a million different things before actually revealing to them what the purpose of him revealing that this strange person stopped by. He's just kind of like loving them all sitting there, like waiting for him to go on. Like he's loving it. They waited anxiously for him to go on. Well, the farmer continued, approaching his point with slow relish. So then he describes the Black Rider coming to his house. All black he was himself too, and cloaked and hooded up as if he didn't want to be known. Now, what in the Shire can he want? I thought to myself. Good day to you, I says, going out to him. This lane don't lead anywhere, and wherever you may be going, your quickest way will be back on the road. So he's already like coming in hot with this guy. He's go away. It's really, really funny. And the Black Rider responds like, I come from over there. And he said slow and stiff, like pointing back west over my fields, if you please. He's just seeing red right now. Farmer Maggot is not happy this person or thing or whatever thinks it's okay to come onto his land, pointing over his fields. So funny. And the rider asks, have you seen Baggins? And Farmer Maggot does describe that he felt kind of a shiver. He was scared. The rider is bribing Farmer Maggot, saying, I will give you gold. I know that Baggins is not in Hobbiton anymore. So it's almost like they know exactly what direction the hobbits are going in. Even though the rider's bribing Farmer Maggot, telling him, and kind of like intimidating him, being scary, whatever. Farmer Maggot says, no, you won't. Basically to the gold, he says, no, you won't. No, you won't. I said, you'll go back where you belong, double quick. I give you 1 minute before I call all my dogs. I just love the sass here. I love the no nonsense, no tomfoolery from Farmer Maggot. He's not effing around. That is for sure. And the Black Rider leaves. He kind of like hisses and then runs away. So funny. So funny. He is scared, but he's more offended by the trespassing to even be scared. He's like, you're on my land. Get away. Go away. And I'm not taking any money from you. I'm not taking any. I don't care what you're looking for, what you're doing. Just, we're not doing this. Like, go away. You'll go back to where you belong double quick. Double quick. I love that. But poor Frodo, he's immediately concerned, and he's like, I don't know how we're gonna make it back to the ferry. He's so scared. He can't believe that their pursuit is so hot at this point. Like, he's realizing they know, like, just like I said, they know where he's going. So he doesn't know how he's gonna how is he gonna make it to the ferry? So he's like kind of sitting at he's just like, I don't know. And Farmer Maggot says he assumes that this is happening because Frodo moved to Hobbiton. Like, that's how funny these hobbits are. He says, then I'll tell you what to think. You should never have gone mixing yourself up with Hobbiton folk, Mr. Frodo. Folk are queer up there. Sam stirred in his chair and looked at the farmer with an unfriendly eye. Oh, they're so funny. But you were always a reckless lad. When I heard you had left the Brandybucks and gone off to that old Mr. Bilbo, I said that you were going to find trouble. Mark my words, this all comes of the strange doings of Mr. Bilbo's. I mean, as silly as it is, the hobbits aren't wrong. This is happening because of Bilbo and because of his strange doings, as they say. And Sam is not happy on this Shire, on the Hobbiton hate. He's not here for it. And I just think that's so funny. But yeah, actually where Farmer Maggot goes with this when he's talking about the strangeness and the oddness of Bilbo, it's not far off. Mark my words, this is all comes of those strange doings of Mr. Bilbo's. His money was got in some strange fashion in foreign parts, they say. Maybe there is some that want to know what has become of the gold. It's a gold ring. And jewels that he buried in the hill of Hobbiton, as I hear. I mean, again, not wrong. That's kind of what they're looking for, a part of Bilbo's treasure, kind of. I mean, not necessarily treasure that came from the dragon, but it is treasure that he brought back on his journey, right? So, yeah. Oh, yeah, and then Frodo said nothing. The shrewd guesses of the farmer were rather disconcerting, because that's like, of course people are going to assume that, Frodo. Of course people are going to assume that. Bilbo did this. This is because of Bilbo's treasure and travels, and it's not far off. That's all I'm saying. People are going to assume that. Farmer Maggot tells him to stay, because he's coming back to Buckland. They're basically almost where Frodo's moving back. He says, stay here and you won't deal with any of these weirdos anymore from Hobbiton. Farmer Maggot kind of looks at him and he's like, I see you got plans of your own, but it is no accident that brought you and that rider here on the same afternoon. And maybe my news was no great news to you after all. I'm not asking you to tell me anything you have a mind to keep to yourself, but I see you are in some kind of trouble. The farmer convinces them to stay for supper and eat with his big hobbit family, which sounds kind of wonderful. Frodo kind of argues with him, but he convinces him to stay, saying that he can kind of hide the hobbits in the wagon before taking them to the ferry himself, which is very thoughtful. And what I wanted to say about that first paragraph I read, just how hobbits, like Farmer Maggot is, you know, he's just another hobbit of the Shire. He has hobbit-like tendencies to kind of gossip and draw out his stories and drink beer and eat food, etc. But they're smart. Like, he knows, it's very perceptive, his observation about what's going on here, and I think they are a lot smarter than we give them credit for. just in general. I just feel like hobbits have a tendency, you just kind of think of them as like silly little hobbits. Of course, like the main hobbits of the story, we see how, you know, all of their strengths come through. But they're not the exception, I think, is what I'm trying to say, is that the heroes of our story are not the exception of how hobbits are so brave, how they're so perceptive, and really just smart and able to draw these conclusions that, like, you know, even, I mean, he probably drew as much of a conclusion as the elves did. It's not like the elves seemed like they knew much more or even cared to know much more, etc. So Frodo finally accepts the invitation. Pippin's relieved. He's like, thank God. They're probably so hungry. The kitchen was lit with candles and the fire was mended. Oh, it just sounds so cozy. Like, I want to go have dinner there. That sounds so nice. The dogs lay by the fire. They eat. There was beer in plenty, a mighty dish of mushrooms and bacon. So they finish up dinner. Maggot puts them in the wagon. It's dark. And as he's leaving, his wife is yelling out to him to be careful. And she says, don't go arguing with any foreigners and come straight back. So now we know that this is not a one-off instance of Farmer Maggot telling somebody off. It's happened before. They're kind of like making their way to the ferry, but they're being very cautious. And even Farmer Maggot is being so cautious. And I think, again, that's his like perceptiveness and like understanding of like, okay, I don't know what's going on, but I know that it's serious. He doesn't even turn his lantern on while they're going through the misty kind of dark towards the ferry. And it's 5 miles that they travel. And when they reach the entrance to the ferry, they hear this clop clop of a pony in the distance. And the tension kind of builds until we get to the end of the chapter. The farmer yells at them. The advancing hooves stop. And the rider, we still don't know who it is, says, I want Mr. Baggins. Have you seen him? Said the muffled voice. But the voice was the voice of Mary Brandybuck. So little funny plot twist there. We're kind of building this tension. Turns out it's not a Black Rider. It's Mary following them, ready to meet them. They're so excited. They have this sweet little reunion. Frodo springs out of the wagon to greet him. So yeah, the farmer bids them goodbye. He gives them a large basket and he says, Mrs. Maggot put this up for Mr. Baggins with her compliments. He handed it down and moved off, followed by a chorus of thanks and good nights. This is such a good way to end this chapter, I think. They watched the pale ring of lights around his lanterns as they dwindled into the foggy night. Suddenly, Frodo laughed. From the covered basket he held, the scent of mushrooms was rising. So we round out the chapter with Frodo resolving his history and tumultuous relationship with this Farmer Maggot that he's been afraid of for decades, who ends up being a hero along our journey. And we continue on our path, now joined by Meriadoc Brandybuck, who had been waiting for them there. The next chapter that we're going to get into, I can't believe that we are already on, is it chapter 5? Oh my gosh, chapter 5, A Conspiracy Unmasked. I love this chapter. We get to see more of Mary, who's such a wonderful character. I love him so much. And we're still trotting along our journey, and things are gonna get interesting real soon. Not that they aren't already interesting. I just think the beginning of this book is, how do I put it? It is not, I don't want to say it's bad, but I think that people start reading who want to read Lord of the Rings. They start reading the book, and within the first few chapters, they're kind of like, okay, like nothing, like not that nothing's happening, but it's kind of a slow burn in the beginning, but things get like, my favorite part of this book is the midway point, like exactly 50% of the way through the book. And I feel like from that point on, the drama and the tension and just the overall, like, the story just gets propelled forward so fast. And I think that that's such a great way to write a story like this, because we have the first half of the book. Like, let's just enjoy getting to know the hobbits and, like, you know, like, we don't know too much about what's going on right now. But I just like to take this moment in the books to, I mean, we're still in the Shire. Let's enjoy being in the Shire, because the Shire will not be there again for the rest of the story. If you didn't know that, I'm sorry. I hope I didn't spoil it for you. But, you know, having dinner at Farmer Maggot's house, meeting Mary at the ferry, things like that. Like, let's savor these chapters. And if you're a first time reader and if you're a little bored, just remember that things will get very intense and it'll kind of happen all of a sudden. So stick with it, right? Enjoy the shireness of it all, the boringness, I guess, if you will. Again, not to say that it's bad or boring or what. I'm not trying to say that. I'm just saying that it's a common thing that people encounter when they try to read these books. And it is so worth it and so satisfying to stick with it. And once you get, I'd say like midway point, maybe like a little less than midway. Yeah, like right in the middle, A Knife in the Dark. That's a really scary chapter. That's like a horror chapter. Especially when we get to Rivendell. Council of Elrond is like my favorite chapter in the Fellowship, I think. I don't know though, that's tough. I think by the end of the first book, I need to do like a Fellowship recap where we go through like favorite quotes, favorite chapters. And I think that would be a really cool idea to just kind of like sum everything up, even just for myself. Like I like highlight these things. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. And then I forget that I loved that specific part, or, you know, such a good book. So yeah, we're cruising. I'm like, I can't believe how far I am in already. Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening and going through this story with me. I love doing these episodes. I really do. And I know that even if it's just a few people out there listening, I don't care. Like, I just love that I can do this, and it's just really fun to read the stories in depth and talk about what my thoughts are just as we go along. If you haven't, follow me on TikTok at Lady of the Pod. If you haven't, follow my Spotify actual channel. Like, I do this where I listen to podcasts and I don't follow the channel. I just listen to each episode. But, you know, it makes me feel, you know, like people are out there listening. If you like the show, follow and you'll get a notification when I post a new episode. Please engage. Let me know your thoughts on everything. I am so excited to continue our journey with a conspiracy unmasked. And it may not be the kind of conspiracy that you're thinking of, but rather a conspiracy of friends. And that's why we love our hobbits, because they love each other. It's really sweet. Anyway, this is Lady of the Rings podcast. I'm your host, Sophia. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk again soon. Go get some second breakfast, go make yourself a cup of tea, and start reading Chapter 5, A Conspiracy Unmasked. We'll see you later.